Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 4 now of the VROOM podcast.
I think episode 4 of, yeah.
As always, I'm your host, Wills Jones, my co-host, Simon Martel.
Hello, everybody.
So, Spain, usually kind of a boring Grand Prix because of all the testing done. I feel like it was like an oddly exciting Spanish Grand Prix this year. We saw a lot of cars pretty close together, some amazing wheel-to-wheel action with Lewis and Max. As Spanish Grand Prix go, this was a very good one for me.
Definitely surprised us with the quality of the racing. A lot of some passing action as well, and I think we can kind of start just talking about why is that race usually so boring, and maybe why it worked out well this year. So one of the things I was reading about, and I think is very interesting, was kind of just track design kind of impacts, of course, how interesting the track is. And one of the big things that makes tracks interesting are like big braking zones, right? So because that's when you can see the difference between the drivers, where once they slow down, whoever slows down first or last is able to pass and catch up on their time. And and this year they removed a braking zone on the Spain Grand Prix by switching one of the turns. So I was even surprised that we saw as much action as we did.
And it for me too, with the reprofiling they did around that turn 10, I thought it would open up more passing, and it's something that I've wanted to kind of see be done there before. So I was excited about it, kind of curious to see how it would go. I think the big thing Spain should change, if they're going to change anything about their track, is that god-awful final chicane.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. It's so true though that usually it's a track that's very well known because they practice on it. So all the drivers have a lot of experience. It's less interesting, and it was funny, right? Because now we have 2 new rookies. I imagine they did, or more than 2, 3. They never raced there, and they did all right, but they definitely you could see they were rookies. They did not perform as well as anybody else on the track. So so that was Spain for now.
Before we go any further, there are congratulations in order for Sir Lewis Hamilton on 100 pole positions in Formula One. What a guy. And 100 races for Max Verstappen. So 2 century marks this race. I thought was pretty cool.
So I was just saying he has a lot of racing ahead. So it's exciting to look forward to that.
Yeah, Max Verstappen's our age. And he's only
exactly
21. So he's got a long career ahead of him. In other sort of Formula One news, Red Bull has stolen 5 more Mercedes engineers from the AMG engine factory, and they're going over to work for Red Bull. So I very, very excited to see what this Red Bull engine can do now that they've got all the Mercedes people. I think they're up to 8 former Mercedes staff now. So getting a pretty good bunch of people in there to put in some good work on that engine, hopefully.
Yeah, I think it's exciting. The big thing, right, is always poaching, right? They're Mercedes engineers. They've worked on the Mercedes engine. Now they're going to be working with the Honda engine. Hopefully they're able to make it work, kind of connect, because they're not starting from scratch, right? But it is exciting at least to see that Red Bull's definitely doing the investment to stay in the sport. So happy to see that.
Yeah, and it's not like a half-assed we're going to build our own engines, but we don't really care who works on them. They are going for the cream of the crop people that they can get to work on their team.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing that's I think really funny is I've been seeing rumors, which I think are very far-fetched, but are interesting to talk about, of maybe Mercedes just completely quitting the sport pretty soon, right? Just leave on top, leave us while they're ahead, sell the percent of the shares to Toto maybe, and he can just kind of transform that team back to just a
Wolf
racing
F1.
team. Yeah, exactly. Which I think would be crazy. They've been dominant for a while, but who knows? Whoever's back at HQ might decide that priorities have to change. But it's always better to leave on top than at the bottom, I imagine. But yeah, so far I'd be surprised to see that happen.
Yeah, I would be genuinely surprised, especially like you usually don't see a team that's on top of the world. And like when you're, winning the Formula One Constructors Championship and at the margin that Mercedes are, like that they are one of the only teams like making real money off F1. Like their F1 team is very viable to keep going for as long as they want it to. So I don't see like they're not losing money on F1. I'm sure they're gaining sales from having the best driver in the world, and everybody sees an AMG on the road and they're like, "Ooh, Lewis Hamilton." But so I think they have far too much positive publicity from
Yeah.
Formula One right now to step away. But
Well,
that's just my opinion.
Also, a pretty interesting to think that like now they're also very invested in Formula E, and they're doing well too in Formula E. So I guess their domination is just extending everywhere.
Yeah, they're taking over all the Formula Series.
Oh man. When you think about the rumors, do you think there's a possibility of Max moving to Mercedes?
Well, so Max was linked with Mercedes when he was like just a kid, when he was the wonder boy of Formula 3 and everybody was kind of pooping themselves over this kid. He was linked to Mercedes, but Mercedes couldn't guarantee him a spot in F1 and Red Bull could with Toro Rosso. So that's where he went. So there is, I think, some possibility, some opt-out clauses in his contract. I could definitely see Max going to Mercedes.
I I don't think Max will go and compete with Lewis in the same car. No, don't you think it's this competitive spirit that he has to prove that where he's been for so long is getting somewhere? He's able to get that victory without needing the best car on the grid by far.
Yeah, I think he'll get his Red Bull World Championship in 2022 and then go race for Mercedes.
No, you're already giving up
No.
on this season? Oh, tragic.
I don't know. We'll see. He could eke it out. Red Bull needs to work on their strategy a bit, I think.
Yeah.
Should we talk about that? Should we talk about what happened in the race?
I think we can kind of get back to it. I talk about like let's go chronologically again. So let's start with practice. And I think it's relevant because I'm going to talk about a thing a bit later on, and it's all relevant to the whole thing. But if we looked at practice, Alpine, we were talking about them last week. Again, very impressive performance. They look good, nice, good looking blue car, and they were looking really fast during practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were looking astonishingly quick in practice. I feel like maybe the Alpines are running qualifying trim in practice because they're far like how fast they seem to be in practice compared to qualifying in the race is just mind-blowing. Yeah. So I think they're like the only team going full beans every time they're out in practice.
Yeah, which can bring its drawbacks, right? Because since all the teams have only a certain set of tires for the whole weekend, and we'll get back to that about the race because that was a big influence. But going through your tires that bad, especially during practice, it kind of takes you away from the potential options you have later on during the week, the weekend.
And even like wear and tear on like other parts on the car. Like going full beans all weekend is really hard on the engine and really hard on the brakes.
Yeah.
So it like
the practice can be used. Sorry, go for it.
Well, I was gonna say like it, like that can be useful in terms of like that the parts are good enough and durable enough to go that far, and they still work just fine in the race. So there's also merit on like always practicing going 100%.
Exactly. I was gonna say like that I feel like that just helps them develop their cars faster, especially in the midfield battle that's so like close and where they really have to keep fighting. Like I wish I would see Aston Martin fighting it out every day, like max speed, trying to just find some performance.
Yeah.
Not much else from practice. Leclerc looked fast. Red Bull looked slow, which I mean they
I
always
mean,
kind of
Red
do
Bull
the
was
same
down at,
thing.
I think, 9 and 10 at the end of
Yeah, yeah, that's
practice
true.
too. So like I don't know. I saw that and I threw up some red flags for me for the race, and
Yeah,
then none of them really came true.
yeah,
But if we look at qualifying, man, that
yeah.
midfield fight is intense.
Oh yeah,
Like,
I agree. I thought initially maybe McLaren like was definitely ahead, but I I I don't think so anymore. There's definitely like there's fighting. They're close.
and like I personally think, and I said this to you over the weekend, like I think a lot of those positions are straight down to driver skill. Like if you look
Yeah,
at, you'll have like two cars pretty far apart from each other. Like that midfield is all just about how good the drivers are and very little about who's on what machinery. I think
yeah,
that's just awesome to watch.
yeah.
And it comes out so beautifully in the race too.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, just to give some context, the qualifying finished with Leclerc third, so with Ferrari, then Ocon fifth, like great showing by Alpine, Sainz. So the two Ferraris are looking pretty good, and then Ricardo, Perez, Norris, Alonso, and then Stroll got kicked down to 11th place. I looked at that, and I've been really impressed with Ferrari, right? Like for the last couple of weeks, like last year they really like let everybody down so much that I kind of just gave up hope, but they're back fighting this year.
Yeah, they are. And over the winter break too, they were the team that lost the least time going into Bahrain. If you look at the lap times, every other team lost about a second, and I think Ferrari only lost like half a second on when the new regs came in. So like they were
Yeah,
already kind of a step ahead of everybody else in understanding how to make their car fast in these new regulations. And I it's all coming together very well for this team. I think yeah,
yeah,
they're looking good. The
yeah,
Tifosi's coming
exactly.
back strong.
Another, I think, relevant thing to talk about qualification, which kind of really impacted the race later on. Well, I said it quick, but Perez, man, he finished 8th place in the Red Bull. That's unacceptable at this point, right? Like
It's kind of
he
back to
has
like
to
the
be
Alex
able to,
Albon. You can't
yeah,
qualify that far down on that team.
yeah. Well, I think he also didn't have a great weekend. Like maybe Spain's not his favorite track because he's had better performance in the last couple of weekends. But
Mhm.
yeah, he needs to be a better like teammate and a better second place driver. We all know that that spot is cursed. The car is definitely very hard to control for somebody that's coming in, but yeah, it's definitely necessary for him to step up.
Yeah, and like it too, like you see it when the obviously strategy call came to pit Max in when he was, right behind um Lewis, like it a lot of that situation could be dealt with a lot better, and there'd be a lot more stress for um Red Bull if Perez is, right on the back of
Yeah,
Valtteri, or
putting
even like
pressure.
running
Yeah,
third, being
exactly.
able to put in immediate
Yeah,
pressure and work as a rear gunner for
yeah.
Max when
Make him work. Make Lewis finish his tires more, and yeah, that's exactly what he needs to be right now. And with the Red Bull car lacking like the pace to really be challenging, that's like the only way they can really think about winning now.
Mhm.
So talking about the race, Lewis started first, and right away from the start, man, Max is an animal at starts, right?
The
And
Assetto Corsa open lobby send at turn one.
yep. I thought maybe Lewis was gonna have contact, but I guess he played it smart. You can see his experience. He just kind of left in the place and went and got it back a bit later.
Oh, I meant like I just before we got on here, I watched the onboards of that.
Yeah,
Oh my God, were they close?
they're so close, and
Like
it's
the
like
like
masterful
millimeters.
control of their car. Yeah,
It
yeah, it's
insane.
I feel at like it's racing and stuff, but man, Max just sent it. It was just like YOLO.
Like I'm pretty sure on the first lap, Max forgets that he's mortal. Like he just
Well,
forgets that
he
like
knows.
maybe shit could go wrong for him, and he just
It's
sends it.
just he knows, and it shows how competitive he is. If he lets Lewis get cleanly away after the first lap, like tough
Mhm.
luck catching up to him.
Yeah, he knows he has to put that Mercedes in dirty air to at least have a chance.
Yeah, exactly.
And it also like
Um,
shows his determination. Just
yeah.
win at all cost.
So that was the first lap, and then from there, like some good fighting, but quickly we saw kind of Max in front, the two Mercedes, and then the rest of the field was close by. And then what, at lap 10, a yellow flag came out.
Yeah, Yuki Tsunoda broke down.
Yep. So Yuki this weekend had kind of some drama around him. I don't know if you've heard about it, but him, he was kind of trashing the car, saying like it wasn't really performing and stuff, and people kind of took it the wrong way, him being a rookie and everything. And then it kind of proved everybody wrong because the car broke down.
Yeah. And I think too, like if you look back, I think in every Grand Prix so far, I'm pretty sure one Honda has broken down.
Really?
I'm pretty sure.
But yeah.
But I know like
'Cause-
at the beginning of the season, because like Honda rushed their development balls to the wall on this engine, I think there are some issues with it that they weren't able to really hash out. Like some electronic stuff. These engines aren't crazy reliable, but they are still like obviously they're good F1
yeah.
engines.
Because everybody finished during Portugal,
Mm.
and then um, yeah, no, I think you're like
Oh, I'm
you're
making
thinking
that up.
about
My bad.
you're thinking about last year. Last year the Honda had a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Well, this year so far it doesn't look too bad. Yeah, Gasly had a problem in Bahrain, but that's about it.
Yeah, Gasly and Perez had
Yeah.
Perez's car turned off in Bahrain. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like yeah, there is that. And I think the same thing happened to Yuki coming into the turn 10 under braking.
Yeah.
His car just turned off.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there is that small electrical issue. I was a little bit right.
Yeah, and then the problem too is like that yellow flag just pissed me off because it just helps Lewis, and I was like, no,
Yeah, it is
no,
tough
not
when
another restart.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was gonna say we need all the help, but not when Lewis is in first place.
Should we talk about Valtteri let Lewis through when you can?
Yeah, exactly. So after that restart, Max is still ahead, and then it's Bottas and Hamilton sharing that second and third place, and one of them pits, right?
Yeah, Lewis pits right behind Max, like meters behind Max, flies into the pit lane, comes out behind Valtteri. They're going along, and Toto comes into Valtteri and says, when you can, give Lewis the position. And then Valtteri started defending.
Oh yeah, he was racing. He was racing.
Mm-hmm. And well, before this weekend too, there were some rumors going around. Are Mercedes going to drop Valtteri mid-season? Which is a very Red Bull thing.
Mercedes move.
Mercedes is far too organized to make a knee-jerk reaction like that. But I think that was a little bit of.
Can you imagine the upgrade Russell? Like, oh, they swap places. Valtteri go to
driver trade. Yeah, straight trade.
Go to Williams.
Yeah, so I think that was probably somewhat of Valtteri just trying to silence everybody. Like, look, I'm still here. I'm still gonna race Lewis.
It's the same story for the last 4 years, but
Yeah. You're going into one weekend, social media lights up. Valtteri's slow. Valtteri sucks, and then he puts it on pole, shit talks Lewis, and doesn't let
Yep.
him pass him.
Yep. So yeah, definitely that like that helped Max him like he did hold out Hamilton for like 1 or 2 laps. So Max had a couple extra laps. And then Hamilton decided to pit again.
Mm-hmm. So it's that like the Mercedes strategy, and the once Lewis pulled in, it was all the commentators and the Red Bull team radio. Yeah, this is looking like Bahrain 2019.
Yep.
Or was it Hungary 2019? Yeah,
Hungary, yeah, Hungary.
It was messy, man. And like I'm sitting there screaming at the TV, like Max pit, Max pit. Like if you pit now, you have a window and you can still, and just I feel like Red Bull kind of sat on their hands there and were like, oh, what should we do? And by the time they realized what they should have done, it was far too late.
Well, that's what I kind of want to talk about because I disagree with you on this one. Red Bull didn't have the option to pit like Hamilton did. Um, Hamilton pitted in and got another pair of medium compound tires. Well, Red Bull didn't have any left because they used them during qualifying and free practice. So they didn't have that extra set of tires to pit to. So they were kind of stuck. Like their whole weekend strategy just didn't allow them for that option, while Mercedes did. So that was just like incredible, like 4D chess. Like they really played that well.
Yeah, and it before the race too, like I was watching the Sky Sports broadcast and they had Toto on, and they briefly asked Toto, like right before the end of his interview, they're like, oh, like what's the, pit stop strategy for this race? And without hesitation, Toto goes, one stop, maybe two, we're flexible, and walks away.
There
So
you
I
go.
think Red Bull was betting on everyone doing a one-stop race. Mercedes, I'm pretty sure, always had the plan to do a two-stop.
Yeah, and I think that's like one of the things that really came out of the weekend. Like, yeah, I think Red Bull didn't plan it well, and they kind of got caught with their pants down, and like it really showed. Like they didn't even have the options to switch to another pair because they didn't have the tires left to do it. So pretty crazy stuff. Like
And
it's
Max's
sad to
first pit
admit that
stop,
Mercedes are just really good at what they're doing, at what they do.
and Max's first pit stop was not called
No.
for by the team. So
Okay.
he came flying into the pits and I think kind of let them know on his way in, like, hey guys, I'm coming.
Yeah.
So like his first pit stop took twice as long as it should have.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
like he still came out ahead of Lewis, but
yeah, and that was another thing that I was gonna like mention. And you're exactly right. Like it took way longer than normal, and it's surprising. Like Red Bull just had like the position, the potential to really like. I think they could have won it, and they messed up on multiple front where they usually don't, like the pits and stuff. While other teams that usually are not performing well definitely like performed really well this weekend. Like I want to talk about Ferrari. Last year, the whole story every weekend was that they had garbage strategists, and this week it worked out really well.
yeah, well, and yeah, like you look at last season and they're like, they're consulting with Seb on what strategy he thinks they should use. And it's like he's already out there trying to drive the car as fast as he can. You also want him to think about when he's going to pit for tires and which tires he might want. So
Yeah,
yeah, I think Ferrari, left a lot up to the drivers in the last few seasons, and I think they've kind of figured out, like, yeah, okay, it's not the 1970s where the driver makes the tire calls. Like you guys have more information on the pit wall than the drivers do, and use that information, which I think they've finally started to.
yeah, um, yeah. So exactly. So at the pit stop, Ferrari had a great performance while Red Bull messed up. Another thing I think we can talk about is we were talking about qualifying Alpine, how well they performed. So sorry, let me just, so Alpine had two cars. Ocon was in 5th place, and then they had Alonso in 10th. Pretty good. Both cars started in the points already. You would have thought they were able maybe to gain one spot each and perform. But the race ended with Ocon 9th and Alonso 17th. So what a slide throughout that race. They just had horrible performance at the end of their races and lost just a lot of position.
And that in that team, Ocon has outraced and outqualified Alonso very quietly.
Yeah.
Like with not a lot of fanfare, he is making Alonso kind of look like the old man that he is.
Yeah, and it's kind of a great redemption story, right? Ocon missed a season, kind of got cut, and he finally has that spot back and he's performing. Like, you gotta be happy for the kid. For the guy.
I think
Sorry, I think we're the same age.
I think it's the Esteban Ocon everyone thought was coming in to F1 when he first did. And now in his second, third go now, he's making it work.
Yeah, and so that was definitely something where Alpine as well, I guess, like we were talking about Red Bull's bad strategy, but Alpine did the same thing. They really didn't plan well their strategy, because in the last like 10 laps, Alonso's tires were just completely shot. They were done, and he got passed by everybody. Like, everybody who was close, he just got passed.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of explained his slides, his slide down all the places. Kind of the same thing happened to Ocon. All right. Last thing I guess we can say at least is that Max, while being passed by Lewis, like 6 laps before the end, which tragic. Like,
yeah, I know.
So close. Like, but he had the window to pit and go and get the fastest lap. So at least it's still able to get those points, but you just don't want to let Lewis take too much of an advance on all those points.
Mm-hmm. I mean, one thing I'd say is I'm really happy that F1 doesn't do the points by how far ahead of the next driver you are.
Yeah. Yeah, so all pretty great stuff. Sorry, I'm just trying to think. So now kind of in the standings, we have Hamilton in front, of course, Verstappen second, and who do you think is third?
Valtteri.
Yeah, exactly. Just because of his position now. Before the weekend, Valtteri was 5th, which was pretty crazy. And I kind of forgot that he scored enough points. But yeah, that crash stole a lot of points from him. But no, he's back at his usual spot now, 3rd place. Norris 4th, Leclerc 5th, which is good on them. Perez 6th. That's that's pretty unacceptable. Hopefully he can kind of find his footing and stuff, because I was excited, man. He looked good last weekend. This weekend he did not look good. So yeah, I don't know. Is that curse? Is that seat curse? What can Red Bull do?
I don't know. I think the last time that seat, no, the second seat's always been cursed. I can't think back to a time where there's been a car with the Red Bull logo on it with the second seat not being cursed.
I think no, Ricardo and Max had a couple of seasons where they helped each other and like both could get wins.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm thinking about.
I think Ricardo's the only one
getting Monaco and stuff. Like,
yeah. I think Danny Rick was the unicorn at Red Bull of a second seat.
Yeah, because who was Vettel's second driver for a while? It was Webber, right?
Mark Webber.
Well, Webber had some good performance as well. Like, I think it's just kind of recent. And
he had some good performances, but once Seb got to like the consistent, okay, Seb's the number 1 driver, man, Mark got thrown under the bus so often.
Yeah.
Pretty much any time the two of them made contact, it was the team was like, yeah, no, Mark hit Seb.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you have a championship leader, you don't. Yeah. um. Yeah. You know what though? I feel like a big thing that would definitely help is if they were just a bit more patient. It's been 3 drivers in 3 years. It's hard for those drivers to, get comfortable with a car that is known to be weird, kind of uncomfortable to drive. So Max knows the car now. It changes every year, but he's used to it. Like it clearly explains his performance. While Sergio, he's still like struggling with the car, which you can definitely see. While he's been with Force India for so long that like he did that beautiful drive last season from 20th to first place. Like I don't think he's a bad race driver. It's definitely something about the car and getting used to those quirks.
Yeah, I think the second driver gets brought into Red Bull and they are, the I think Red Bull is always super excited about who their second driver is and always thinks they can do super well. And then you get 2 races in and they haven't really performed. And Helmut Marko starts picking out who the next person's going to be. Like
Yeah.
Red Bull is full of like the super knee-jerk reactions to performance on track. I think if they just let Gasly stay in that car a little bit longer, I think we would have a legitimate Red Bull Mercedes title fight with Verstappen and Gasly against Hamilton and Bottas. Because we've seen like Gasly's a good driver. He's won a race. The kid can drive, but like they pulled him out too soon because they got scared about their championship chances. When in the end, pulling him out of the car is going to shoot you in the foot even more than leaving him in. I think.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely like hopefully it's a lesson they're kind of learning now because they've done it twice. Like hopefully they leave Checo there for like 2 years and give him a chance to develop. But it's kind of the nature of the sport where it's Red Bull's in a position where they can be contenders, so they're just kind of doing everything to try to get to that next level. Kind of how some teams are just gonna go baller, like in football. A lot of teams are just gonna go baller on free agency and kind of bust their cap, but this year or the next year is the year, and that's just what they decide to do.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I don't know. Like, you really just have to let like a driver wait in a car and be consistent. Like the fact Red Bull always assumes like right away they're gonna get in our car and they obviously like our car is obviously second fastest on the grid. So when you get in it, you should qualify fourth every time. And I think they give you 3 or 4 races of not qualifying fourth, and they freak out.
Well, yeah, like as spectators, like that's what we would expect as well, where it's like, look, the car is clearly like much faster. You see the qualification times of like Max and Hamilton compared to everybody else on the grid, and you're like, well, it's not the car's problem, but maybe it is.
Yeah, and that like I really do think that car is always set up for the number 1 driver and it's left up to the number 2 to figure it out. Like I think that car is perfectly set up for how Max wants to drive it, and Sergio is going to have to figure it out. And same with when Sebastian was racing, I always felt like that car was set up more for specifically for him than it was for his teammates.
Man, talking about Vettel and Alonso, you made me think, man, what's the deal with these old men? Like, I'm surprised of their poor performance. I would have expected their experience to really show like much better, and so far, like nothing.
Yeah, and I mean, like Fernando Alonso is an amazing race car driver. Like he's obviously won the Formula One World Championship twice. He's competed in the World Rally Championship. He's competed in Dakar. He's won the 24-hour Le Mans. And yeah, he's being made look silly by a 20-year-old.
Yeah.
And that, I don't know. I feel like Seb's just kind of becoming like the grumpy old man on the grid.
Yeah, it's the image that kind of is looking to appear. We can hope for, at least what I'm really hoping for, is that he's like very open with sharing a lot of his knowledge and kind of being a mentor to Lance. Because if he can kind of guide Lance along and really help him like perform, like that's kind of a W for Aston Martin.
Yeah, and I definitely think like I would assume why they brought him in, and I heard some stuff early on where like Lance was saying like Seb's been a huge help to like me as a driver.
Yeah.
So like, and it too, like if you look at Alpine with the Alonso and young Ocon, is like those are like their two babies. Right? Like you've got your newborn and Ocon, and then the one that you sent off to university and whatever, he's gone off and become a man.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's like Uncle Fernando and little nephew Esteban over there at Alpine.
Who's the last team Alonso raced for?
He was Renault, McLaren, Ferrari, McLaren, Renault.
Yeah, so
he was in the awful like 2016 McLarens when they had the Honda engines again.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Renault, and then yeah, okay. So then he was with McLaren for a little bit until 2019, and then back to Alpine. Yeah. So I was gonna say, I remember there was kind of some bad blood between him and McLaren at the end of his stint there. So of him kind of not being the best kind of team player. So far happy we're not hearing that from Alpine, and yeah, he can only hope that he's helping Ocon along.
And I think like Alpine, having the Renault DNA, I think they already fully knew what they were getting themselves into with signing Fernando. Like there's no hiding the fact that he can be very toxic in the garage. when his team has a slow car, he can be the most toxic driver in the garage. But at the same time, if the team interprets what he's saying in a constructive way, he can do amazing things with a race team. Like I think if you look at his time at Ferrari and those title fights against Seb, he probably was a pill to work with in the garage. Yeah. But because everybody had the same focused goal of win the championship, they were able to take Fernando's probably perceived as bitching and use it and work on the car and develop it better. Where I think at McLaren, they, at the time when he was there, had this sort of idea like, we know exactly what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong and how to improve it. And our drivers aren't going to tell us what we're doing right and wrong.
Yeah.
Like that, I think that was the biggest issue with him in his last stint at McLaren, is that he kept telling them the car is shit, and they kept telling him do better. Like I don't feel like there was any real communication. They were just kind of all shouting at each other.
Man, talking about McLaren, what do you think about Ricciardo?
He's finally coming to grips with the car, I think. I'm kind of excited about it. I think we're finally seeing the Danny Rick that we can see. He said this last weekend there were several times during the race where he felt like he nailed a full lap and like got 5 or 6 corners per lap perfect. And
yeah,
like I think that's all you can really ask for from him, is just keep getting better and building that confidence, and it's coming. And I think Monaco is one of Danny Rick's favorite tracks. It's coming up in 2 weeks.
Exactly what I was gonna say. He's coming up to one of his tracks, and then he finally outperformed Norris this weekend. Like he definitely like looked much better than Lando this weekend. So good for Rick. Like I'm sure him seeing Alpine starting to perform, he might be thinking
Got
about
a little
his
fire
decisions,
under
but
his ass. Yeah.
he's still like if he can keep performing during this season, I think it's going to be very exciting for Ricardo and for Norris, well, just McLaren in general, because they have two really good looking drivers this year.
Yeah. Man, like new regs on driver lineup alone, McLaren looks lethal.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and it's one of like, I would put them like just driver lineup alone pretty close to Red Bull.
Yeah. I mean, you just made me think, man. New regulation. Can you imagine like Hamilton like just starting like P9 after qualifying? Like I can't even imagine that.
I know. Like I keep trying to think about this and like hopefully these cars, show off who's the better driver because there's less dirty air and all that.
Yeah.
So like yeah, we might still see Lewis up at the front, but it could be really mumble jumble in behind him.
Yeah. All right. I don't really have any more topics on my list. Do you have anything else? Otherwise, we can talk about what we're looking forward to. Oh, I guess next week. But yeah, anything else on your list, Wills?
No, nothing else on my list. So what we're gonna do is because we have a gap to Monaco next week. I'm going to put the VROOM Gmail in the description below. You guys can go into that, send us questions, anything you want us to explain about F1 you maybe don't understand, have questions about Monaco, why it's such a special race, why do people want it to leave, send that in to us, we'll answer them. A little Q&A, Vroom style.
Yeah, and from that as well, we're kind of just going to be talking a lot about the history of Monaco, kind of what makes it such a big name and what makes it great, maybe what doesn't make it great. So if ever you're kind of you're new into the sport, want to kind of get back into it because we didn't see Monaco last year. So has been a while since we've seen some F1 cars around there. So tune in next week. We're going to be talking about that. Other than that, thank you guys again for tuning in. Hopefully you're liking the season so far. I'm definitely enjoying it a lot. I find that the midfield battle is really interesting this year. I could not tell you who's going to win at the end of the year. And Red Bull still in it, maybe.
I think Red Bull could still like. We need both Mercedes to crash at the start of a race, and Red Bull's right back in the fight.
I was gonna say we need some phone calls made to AlphaTauri, maybe to have some torpedoes happening, and then we're good.
Oh yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Like, comment, subscribe.